What's up, guys? We're back with another video. I know it's been a while. Today, I have a special guest, my good friend Marco. We're going to be talking all about SUI. We're going to talk about our thoughts on SUI. I have him on to really dive deep into the Move programming language, as he's been a programmer for the past 10 years. He's one of my best friends as well. And we're just going to give all our thoughts around SUI, a fundamental deep dive like we always do. We're going to go through the tokenomics, their socials, everything you need to know about SUI. And at the end, I'm going to tell you if I'm buying SUI right now or not, and why. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great today. I've been reading a lot about SUI and the Move programming language, and I think that there's a lot of really good things about it. And I think now is a good opportunity for people to start looking at it. So yeah, let's get into it, man.
Let's dive in. Okay, so first let's start off with what is SUI. SUI is a proof of stake layer 1 blockchain, and they were actually founded by Miston Labs, which were previous engineers over at Facebook who worked on Libra, which was later named to Diem. Diem, they kind of split up when the SEC shut it down, and they split into Aptos and SUI. So Aptos and SUI used the Move programming language, and they were specifically built for scalability and low latency transactions. So they have, like we said, the Move programming language, which is, supposed to improve security and efficiency, and it's designed to prevent re-entrancy attacks. Did you want to kind of talk about what that is and your findings with the programming language and how it compares to like Solidity and some of the other common blockchain languages?
Yeah, so a lot of the times when you're looking at most of the application landscape for dApps, 90% plus is going to be written in Solidity for the Ethereum network. Traditionally, we've seen a lot of issues on the Ethereum network over the last years for reentrancy attacks. Basically, what this is they, like, you saw examples with this with what happened with Curve. If anybody remembers a big Curve exploit back in the day, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, there's basically an opportunity when the network is figuring out what type of function you're calling and what you're trying to do with the related smart contract data for it to basically insert multiple spends and drain your account. So we've seen that exploit used time and time again. It's actually still happening for developers who kind of miss it and end up deploying anyway. That it'll still be possible for people to do it. It's sort of baked in to the architecture of the Ethereum mainnet and all of its nodes and how it all functions. So what Move has done is it's allowed this to be kind of extrapolated into like a new account-based architecture. So essentially, like on an Ethereum ledger, you'd have to look up the token ID, and then you would get all the information like who owns it, what's their wallet address, what permissions do you have to work with that specific token. But in Move, a lot of that data is sheltered under your account. So if you don't have the access credentials to the token nested within your account structure, then you can't use that coin to function on the network because it's not yours. So it actually is a lot more secure that way, and that's actually how we see a lot of the authentication roles being built into modern applications for like progressive web apps, like in React, TypeScript, Vue, all that kind of stuff. So when you're saying database models up, that's usually how you have it. You have an account. The account inherits certain access privileges related to transactions occurring on the ledger. So there are like certain architectural benefits to the Move language, and the way that's architected is to prevent these types of re-entry attacks.
I remember we were talking about this last night or other day, and you were saying how there's a way to take your EVM code and put it into a system so that it still works on Move.
So the main one that allows you to take your Move code and put it anywhere is Lumio, Lumio. So Lumio basically, you install that into your Move project, and it'll help the project compile into other languages and be able to be hosted as smart contracts on other virtual machines, whether that be an EVM or with another project like Near. If you're not writing in Solidity, you're probably writing in Rust, and Rust is basically like the parent language of Move. But Move is kind of like evolved using Rust and is almost become like kind of its own little set of tools related to just blockchain functionality. So it's very specialized towards the use case, and overall it's just easier to think of a future where people will probably end up learning Move now that it's available and seeing that translated down into a lot of like more secure contract code. Now, you'd have to be motivated to do that. And there also like are bridges to moving like your Solidity code into Move.
Yeah, thanks for breaking that down. And this might have like gone over your heads a little bit, but it's really important to know this stuff as an investor because, we have all these different layer one blockchains, most of which use Solidity, but a lot of them have their own code. And it's good to know which one's the best because the best code is going to attract the developers to build, and developers are going to build the applications that people use. And more applications, more TVL, higher market cap, which translates to larger appreciation once you're buying into these projects. So we really wanted to nail that down. And guys, to get more information, I recommend you going over to the SUI white paper if you want to dive deeper. So now that we kind of talked about that, I want to talk about the tokenomics and kind of how all that works because, just because a blockchain is good, just because a project is good, they can be solving all these problems, but if their tokenomics aren't good, it could still be a bad investment.
I think SUI's done a good job at like bringing Move as a coding language forward. I think a lot of people will start to realize that it has a lot of really useful tools for debugging, especially like during development. And I think those tools will begin to grow. Like it kind of reminds me of, when I first saw React kind of coming out of, I was working on Ruby on Rails, and I saw React kind of come out, and I was like, I think I'll move over, and that was the right call. There was a lot
move over.
Yeah, that was the right call. So it just depends on where we're sort of at. I think right now there's not really a ton of momentum. And so, there's not really a ton of existing toolkits that people have developed peripheral to Move, which kind of prevents people from going beyond just like a research and test case. But I think that will start to change as people start to realize that there is really no patching out of the system for Solidity and for Ethereum. There's no patching out the intrinsic issues with their network. Those will always be risks of running projects on the Ethereum network. And so I think there's now like opportunity out there, and developers are honestly looking right now for what will be the next most secure standard for blockchain and token development.
So for the SUI token, they have the SUI token. It serves a few main purposes. So one, you can stake SUI to participate in the proof of stake mechanism. Like I said, it's a proof of stake chain, so you can take your tokens, stake on the staking contract, and get a yield. Two, SUI is the asset denomination needed to pay for gas fees required to execute and store transactions or other operations on the SUI network. This is typical. And then obviously you can use SUI as an asset for various applications. So you can use it in money market platforms, provide liquidity for it, and accumulate it passively. I'm going to be making a video on my personal YouTube channel, Crypto Noah, subscribe there, on how I would go about accumulating SUI passively via yield farming on decentralized exchanges such as Cetus, which is the top DEX on SUI. And then you can also use SUI as a governance token. So you can participate in on-chain voting, issues, and protocol upgrade. Okay, so now that we talked about that, let's look at the market cap SUI and compare it to the fully diluted valuation. So as you guys know, if you've followed the channel for a while, the fully diluted valuation takes into account all of the tokens. Market cap is just the circulating supply times price. If I remember that correctly, one of those, I might have flip-flopped it. You can see the market cap is 7.2 billion, but the fully diluted valuation is 22.2 billion. So there's still around $15 billion in tokens that need to come onto the market, right? That needs to get unlocked. So we need to figure out how those gets unlocked, the inflation schedule, so that way we can know if this is a good investment or not, because you don't want to be getting dumped on, right? So if you go over to cryptorank.io, it shows you that around 32.5% is unlocked, and we still need to unlock the rest, right? And if you scroll down here, it looks like it's mostly just linear unlocking, right? So we have tokens unlocking all the way till 2030 here for the community. For staking, we have around 40% that needs to get unlocked. The Series A is already completely unlocked. The Series B is being unlocked linearly. So is the early contributors. The community access has been fully unlocked. And then you have the Miston Labs treasury. So they use the treasuries to like fund certain things, to pay projects to come on. So this unlock is actually good because, it's kind of like when we talk about in macro finance. If you print money and then you use that money to invest into a business and that business makes money and it pays employees, and then you take that money that you made and you use it to pay off your loan, that is money printed well because it goes into being productive, versus if you print money and it finds its way into art and other things like that. And you can argue like, oh, it's paying the art company, but an art company is a lot smaller and it doesn't put as much food on the table for multiple families. It's kind of the same thing here. The more tokens that's being unlocked for the treasury, and they're, giving people grants, or they're having events where they're teaching more people about SUI or anything like that, I think that's a good thing. These other ones, you have to be a little bit more aware of these because Series B, that's from a venture capitalist, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to generate returns for the limited partners. So they're going to want to take some profits probably immediately or pretty soon thereafter. Maybe they're going to wait for a bull market, but since this goes out to 2030, like the biggest unlocks are going out to 2030, and this is for staking. So this staking is how they pay people to stake. This one isn't so bad. This one isn't so bad. But for the Series B and the early contributors, those are probably gonna, hit the market. So I'm not upset. I'm not upset at these tokenomics. I've seen a lot worse, and I like how it's, they're allocating these things towards different things that can actually help the project. So now let's kind of look at their social media, because a lot of times in crypto, you can have a good product, but if you are up against another product that has better marketing, even if the product is inferior, a lot of times it won't win out. So first, let's hop over to the SUI website. I like these graphics. They're kind of cool. So this is their website, sui.io.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Yeah, and you can see they have, most innovative companies built on SUI. Frank Templeton's pretty big, Bluefin. And I'm going to show you guys the DeFi llama and show you like the TVL on there as well. They're showing their transactions per second, all of that good stuff. Less code, more secure. We kind of talked about that. These graphics are pretty cool. Basecamp, so it looks like that's probably some kind of coding boot camp. And then I'm trying to get to their socials down here.
And just to kind of talk a little bit about the courses, I mean, it's probably going to take the usual developer who knows Rust already about like a week to 2 weeks to get really familiarized with Move and be able to develop their smart contracts with SUI. Solidity is a lot easier for web developers to sort of pick up who are familiar with JavaScript, but I would say like Rust is a little bit further away from that. So, if you have some Rust knowledge and you're trying to get into new things, I would highly recommend looking into Move. I don't think your time would be wasted, actually. I think this is something that will probably become normalized, and you'll be able to always, at least with whatever you write, port it back to other chains and other languages. So you're not really losing any progress. If anything, you're just learning a future-proof skill. And if you already know Rust, why not,
So if we look here at their Discord, you can see they have almost 1 million members, right? 25K online. That's not bad. They even have a YouTube channel, which is cool. They have over 10,000 subscribers. So that's pretty good. 263 videos. I always respect projects that put content on YouTube, and you can see they're pretty active. They have a lot of videos that they put out even just 3 days ago, right? Tons of videos just 3 days ago and then a month ago. So it looks like they kind of been picking it up on their YouTube, which I really like. And if we check them out on Twitter, crypto lives on Twitter. They have over 1 million followers. So SUI is big shit popping, right? And they get a lot of engagement. 3K likes here, 490 retweets, and you can kind of see that trend on pretty much most of their posts. So they get some pretty good engagement. They even have a LinkedIn. Most crypto projects don't have a LinkedIn, and they have 25K followers on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty stellar. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty good for a crypto project.
Not stellar lumens, just
not stellar lumens, guys. Not financial advice. Oh yeah, I gotta say that none of this is financial advice, guys. Consult with a financial advisor. Jeez,
just a walkthrough.
Just a walkthrough, guys. We're just shooting the shit over here.
This is just a show home, okay? You don't need to buy the house.
Okay, so now what's actually happening on SUI, right? So if you go over to DeFi Llama, if you guys haven't watched the channel, this is like a aggregation website that gives you tons of data on all kinds of things. You hit the chain section and you look at all of the layer L1s and L2s, and you can see that SUI is number 9 behind Arbitrum, Base, Barachain, which has grown fast, Tron, Binance Smart Chain, Bitcoin, Solana, and ETH. They have 58 protocols built on it, and you can see that they have 1.25 billion in TVL on the actual protocol. And if we click it, you can see it's kind of been an uptrend. They kind of dropped with the rest of the market, but they have their money market protocols, they have their decentralized exchanges, different yield protocols, RWAs, DEXs, etc., etc. And then we already went to the website, so you can kind of see like some of the partnerships and some of the companies that's kind of built on SUI. So now we're here towards the end. For everyone who stuck around, thank you. So I just want to kind of give a high level of the strengths and the weaknesses here. So the strengths is, high throughput, parallel execution that makes it fast and scalable. That's one thing that we didn't touch on. So unlike Ethereum, transactions are actually processed in parallel, which reduces congestion, which keeps gas fees down. Any blockchain is in the business of selling blocks, and there's only so much space between each block. So it's like if you're flying in a plane from San Francisco to New York and it's only one plane going over there, then those tickets are going to be really, really expensive. Having parallel processing, right? Transactions processed in parallel is almost like having multiple planes flying to the same place so that the tickets are cheaper because it's all supply and demand.
Yeah, and I wanted to just add, I believe the transactions per second are 15,000 on any like move-based ledger.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the highest out there. The other ones I think are in the 11,000 range at the high end, and Ethereum is at like 59 transactions per second.
After the merge, yeah.
Something like that. So, I mean, if you think about that,
Visa's 60,000, so not even close.
I come from like a transportation supply chain background. They have like large data, big data problems. So, if you're trying to make an application that can support supply chain logistics, finance, fintech trading, end-of-day audits, different types of things like that, and you're trying to secure your data with a blockchain project, Move and in conjunction with it, SUI might be a great blockchain to look into because not only does it provide you scalability, but they're focused on preventing security issues. They've engineered a lot of the security issues out of what they've observed happening in, other networks. So I think it's just, there's a lot of great strengths there and a lot of potential. I just wanted to highlight that. I think there's a lot of stuff that has yet to be realized or proven with some of this, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of positives in what the SUI project and what Move as a language kind of promises us as a community. So I think it's exciting what they're doing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So also another plus that they have is their developers are from the Meta team, from the old Libra project, and that project, while it did get shut down, it was a tall glass of milk of a problem that they were trying to solve that took a lot of brain power. So the team is good. And then another plus is obviously the Move programming language, and we kind of dove into why we're bullish on that. As far as the weaknesses go, it's not even nothing crazy, honestly. One thing is that it's still early stage, but they've been rising. And I think as one thing I like about SUI is, I live here in San Francisco and they're always hosting live events and they'll have food. It's always a good environment. People there are always cool. And they're teaching people how to use the programming language and how to onboard into SUI more than a lot of other projects that are even based in the SF, like other layer 1 blockchains that I'm not even going to mention here, right? But they still have a ways to go before they catch up to an Ethereum or a Solana, etc. Another weakness could be the token unlock schedule, but that's for a project like this, you're going to need to raise money and people are going to have to make money. And these tokenomics aren't even terrible. Now that you guys stuck around to the end, am I buying or not, and why? I am. I have a bag of SUI, and I do expect SUI's price to rise as bullish conditions return, as liquidity on ETH gets unlocked once ETH finally does reach all-time highs. I think a lot of people are going to want to speculate into other L1 blockchains, and I think SUI is going to be at the top of the list. I'll bring it here.
Yeah, maybe should I just add anything for weaknesses? I didn't really touch on any of them.
If you have some.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the biggest obstacle for anything with SUI and Move and even Aptos, I guess the other projects that use Move as a coding language is just the adoption of developers. We have so few developers right now actually looking into it and working on it. So if you are curious and you have the extra time, take some time to do it. You're going to be part of like a select few of people who have that valuable knowledge and information. And that in and of itself is valuable because people will probably reach out, ask you, hey, what do you think of this? What do you know, can I interview you? I can't tell you how many times people have sent me like an Amazon gift card just for getting my opinion on something. So I think it's worth it just to know what it is if you haven't looked into it. But at the end of the day, I think that's up to everybody to decide, like, depending on the life cycle of their project. So if you really look at this and you see like, oh, in 5 years, I think that move will be a lot further along than it is, which I actually agree with that. I think that it will continue to persist, and I think that it will maybe even take some of the share away from just purist Rust sort of backends, like what you see with Near. So I think Near is also a lot more focused on the NFT, a lot more focused on social media type integrations, whereas I think SUI and its move language are more focused on the actual financial utility purposing of the token systems that they provide. So it's less of an entertainment business and more of like a actual functional model with like high levels of security, which I think is something you can say about most blockchains that run in Rust. So anyway, just my 2 cents. I think that if we had more libraries and more contributed projects with Move, it would be a no-brainer to be building with Move right now. And at the end of the day, that's probably the only weakness I see, at least right for now, until things pick up. So
also, guys, be on the lookout. We are gonna make some music for SUI. Me and this guy made the world's first crypto-themed album. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, all the major platforms. Go and check it out. I think it's fire. And now we're starting to make music for other crypto projects because culture comes from music. So we're trying to help formulate crypto culture. So music from SUI dropping soon. So follow his Spotify as well, Excerpt, but it's spelled
EXVRT.
Yeah. So guys, with that, I'd like to conclude this video. We thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. Let us know what other layer 1 blockchain or project you want us to cover next. And follow Crypto Noah because I'm going to be putting out a lot more SUI content there as well. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching. We love every single one of you who tuned in. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Take care,
trade
guys.
safe.